never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Dungeon Master of None.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And I'm Dungeon Master Rob, and we have a very special episode for you today. They're all very special, but this one's even more special. Matt and I are acting as something like a consumer protection bureau. Somebody has to look out for the common man, the working man, the consumer. Right. And since the people who you would expect to are not doing that, Matt and I have to step in. And so we're gonna provide you with some critical information regarding things that you might consume and why you should be wary.
Yeah, we're the ad busters of the TTRPG space, and we've often said it's a mantra of ours is that the most important role you can have in a role-playing game is that of the consumer, right? And
that's right. We are all consumers first and foremost, right.
So you're not artists, you're not storytellers, you're not actors or friends.
You're consumers. You might be a content creator, but even then, you are just creating schlop for consumption and are a consumer yourself first and foremost. So, as consumer Americans and consumer citizens of the world, we are here to warn you about certain consumption scams that you might come across. As some of you are aware, the crowdfunding platform Kickstarter is a popular place for tabletop role-playing games to find funding and backers and to achieve completion sometimes.
Right. I'm all about achieving completion. I don't know why you phrase it that way, Rob, but yeah, so I mean the idea of Kickstarter, right, is that this is not a shop. You're like kind of quasi investing in something. Of course, you're not actually investing. You don't gain a share of a company's stock or their capital or a percentage of their returns. It's more like a big pre-order shop. And of course, in the early days of Kickstarter, I feel like these lines were blurred, and more or less everyone understands today that it's basically a fancy place to pre-order things. In fact, if you kickstart something today, there's a warning from Kickstarter that says like, hey, you dummy, Kickstarter is not a store. There's no guarantee you are going to get any of your money back or anything for your money.
Yeah, I mean, Kickstarter, it's like you're a venture capitalist, but you're one of like 10,000 venture capitalists, and you don't have any of the benefits that a venture capitalist gets, and you don't have any power, and you don't receive any returns, except maybe if the project is funded and the people behind it actually manage to finish the thing, which, as it turns out, is not necessarily a guarantee. And there are a lot of high-profile examples of Kickstarters that never deliver, but I don't know that people are aware of quite how deep and wide this particular, I don't want to say grift, but this particular way of doing things is in the TTRPG community specifically.
Yeah, And I think you might expect us to talk about maybe some well-known titles that have turned out to be more or less grifts in the Kickstarter or other types of crowdfunding space. But we decided to go way back to the beginning to show that this has been going on a long time. And, maybe at the end of the episode, we'll come to some conclusions. Are you born a grifter? Is there a sucker born every day? Or do you, become one through, circumstance? Or are some of these people not grifters at all? They just failed. We'll find out. So let's go back in time.
Yeah. So there are obviously some very recent examples of this, and there are some that are still going on, which we will talk about at some point.
We'll have to wait for them to eventually fail or become grifts, and then we can talk about them.
But in the meantime, there are some that have been going on for quite a while, and Matt really, some of these I knew about, but Matt really went deep on one that I had not heard of, or if I had heard of it, I had forgotten about it. And this is the Far West.
Rob, hello.
Ni hao. I'm Gareth Michael Skarka. I'd like to invite you to a world built from the inspirations of spaghetti westerns and Chinese wuxia.
Well, so what you just heard was a person with a very European last name saying ni hao, and that's Gareth Michael Skarka. And this is, I think, one of my favorite Kickstarters of all time. So this is a Kickstarter called Far West, Western Wushu Mashup Adventure Game. Tagline, a fantasy world based on the tropes of the spaghetti Western and Chinese wuxia. Add steampunk elements, mix well, and launch with an RPG.
So there's a lot to love about Far West. And this, as we mentioned, is deep Kickstarter lore. This launched in 2011, and as of the recording of this episode, September 3rd, has not delivered anything. That's not true. Sorry, they have a website. But I think there's a lot to really dig into here. One of my favorite things that this is they describe it as a transmedia project, which according to them means that there's a website, there's fiction vignettes, artwork, inspirography. I don't know what that is.
Dungeon Master of None, Grift, or Warning Tip 1. If someone tries to do something that is more than one thing, that's too much.
That's too many things. Too many things. One is exactly as many things as anyone should try to do ever. And
I struggle to do one thing. Yeah. You struggle to do
I struggle to do a single thing. Yeah. Many things is too many things.
I think we should start with talking about Far West, because this will become a recurring motif. Is that this is another white guy who wants to make a Asian, as broadly painted as you possibly can imagine, inspired RPG, which, maybe is not impossible to do, but it usually comes out pretty ham-fisted, especially if there are no, co-authors or consultants on this, and this one's no exception. Just to say, this is the first in a long line of books we're gonna look at like this.
I'm not saying that it is. We're not saying that it's impossible for white folks to do a cool Asian-inspired kung fu RPG or anything. Just that most of the time it sucks, and there's a long and illustrious history now of, again, mostly white guys trying to do kung fu, wuxia, whatever, and not doing a very good job. Now, to this guy's credit, in 2011,
Rob, we need to ban white men from North America from looking at the Wikipedia page for samurai.
Yes,
it's getting out of control.
White guys cannot read about Bushido anymore. You are forbidden. But to this guy's credit, this happened in 2011. So this was a long time ago. There have not been quite so many. You could maybe forgive
feng shui, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you could forgive Far West for not being aware of the mistake they were making. I mean, I wouldn't, but you could. You could be gentler. It's also interesting. So here's a little bit more of a description from the creators. A fantasy world that Stephen King's The Dark Tower meets The Storm Riders, meets Deadwood, meets Afro Samurai, meets The Wild Wild West, meets Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, meets Django, meets The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., meets House of Flying Daggers, and more. For what it's worth, as a fan of all of those things, there's a lot of overlap, and you probably could have communicated the same thing with maybe like 3 examples, but whatever.
Yeah. I think the other really interesting thing about this property, other than it's a setting that lots of people are interested in, the Weird West, especially one that recognizes the central role that Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans, other people from East Asia played in the history of the West, and a fun RPG in that, is that this one raised a lot of money for the time being. So this was in 2011, and Kickstarter in 2011 was only a couple years old, and I think a lot of people hadn't realized that, it had a lot of potential for people who are making board games and role-playing games to get some funding to print books. And it raised a lot of money for the time period. It was a big Kickstarter. It raised around $50,000, which you might say, well, that's not a lot today. Well, in 2011, it was.
And again, I got to give them some credit. All they asked for was $5,000. Now, I don't really know what they were going to do with $5,000, but that's all they asked for, right? So you can't give them too hard of a time for raising 10 times what they wanted. That's not really on them. So, though it is kind of funny they still haven't delivered. One thing that's interesting, Matt, is that nowhere on any of this is Firefly mentioned. Though clearly Firefly is an obvious like inspiration and like a core text to this particular game. I mean, in 2011 we hadn't even canceled Joss Whedon yet.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious about the omission of Firefly.
Well, that's in the future. This is in the past.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, thinking about some of the media that inspired this in their much too long list of House of the Flying Daggers and whatever is, since this Kickstarter launch and has still failed to deliver, let's see, 3 seasons of the excellent HBO show Warrior have come out. 45 issues of East of West have comes out. Deadlands published another campaign setting in the time this came out. And so, yeah, there's a lot of... This Kickstarter has been going on so long that media that have similar vibes have been developed, produced, shot, released, sent to home video.
I mean, cyberpunk was like, as an idea, invented in like the early 80s, and within 10 years became so ubiquitous that it was then being parodied by the same authors. Like, that's how like quickly a like, you know, meme subculture, subgenre can exist. And that is how long sort of like Asian inspired Westerns has been an idea. And already it is now kind of like a cliche, like going from the time when they launched to the, to now.
Yeah. So the other reason that you should know about the Far West as a Kickstarter, as a RPG, is we're recording in September 2023, and this was launched in 2011. So it has basically been almost 12 years since this Kickstarter is launched and failed to produce a book. Now, that's kind of not unusual. There are a lot of books, and we'll look at some of them, where the creator had a cool idea and raised money.
Often it's never.
Right.
Like, there have been updates for this, even though it has not been delivered. But
Right.
Sometimes they just take the money and you never hear from them
You
again.
never hear from them again. That is completely normal. For after 6 months, the creator disappears. Everyone's like, where's my money? The crazy thing about this Kickstarter is that for the last 12 years, the creator has continued to release updates, to continue to tease that the Kickstarter is going to be ready by the end of the year, going to be ready next month. The layout is done. It's so close. And for 12 years, every deadline that this author has placed has been missed. So much so that some enterprising fans have put together a list of 84 timeline promises, including one happening the week of this recording. All of these deadlines have been missed.
So most recently, in June of 2023, Gareth M. Skarka tweeted that somebody is doing the layout, and this should be done in a month. Now, that would have been July. It is now September. However, backers were informed, again, this week, 4 days ago, that the Far West PDF is to be delivered next week. So, let's...
But this is the 84th update, and if you go back a year, it says it's going to be done in a month. If you go back 2 years, it says, August 25th, 2018. It is going to be finished this week. So it's a real Charlie Brown and Lucy. I will gladly take anyone's bet that the Far West will not come out this week because it's been 12 years. At a certain point, it is okay to give up on a project. Just admit you took some people's money. You probably spent it to maybe make it happen. Maybe use some of it on yourself. We don't know. And it's just not going to happen.
Apparently there's a Discord server. Matt, did you check out the Discord for Far West? Yeah.
There's a lot of in a recurring theme we will see here. There are a lot of unhappy people. Like my favorite, one of the Discord comments say, this is from February 25th, 2021. Will you commit to the releasing of the PDF to backers in whatever state of completion it may happen to be before the end of 2021? Yes, without hesitation, the creator says. Fortunately, that did not happen.
That has not happened. So, watch this space, I guess, and we will see if this is the time that Far West delivers. Supposed to be by the end of this week, September 8th, 2023, about.
It's the 84th promise of when something is going to come out is the charm. It's going to be this time, Rob. So I guess our point, our grifter tip number one is if something seems like it's not actually going to happen, even if you were invested in it and put money in it, if someone misses more than 2 or 3 deadlines, it's probably just not going to happen. You should give up, cut your losses, learn your lessons about what to spend your money on, and move on.
I mean, this is a big, we'll do some big picture grifter tips at the end, but anytime you back something on Kickstarter, the only way to approach that money is as gone. Just,
you're at the tables in Vegas.
Yeah. And I do this all the time, and then occasionally I will get something from Kickstarter that I didn't expect, that I forgot about, and it's like a little present to myself from the past. But what you definitely should not bother to do is go on the Discord or go on the backer forums and complain, because 1, if you made it that far, you've already lost, and 2, you will definitely not get anything that you want that way. You will just let it go.
Well, and again, shout out to the guy who made the Far West for just being the longest running Kickstarter to just keep it up, right? To keep up the idea that, yes, I will release this, instead of doing what everyone else does and just disappearing or moving on to the next thing and pretending this never happened.
And here's another terrific Kickstarter that I was kind of bummed when Matt included this, because I had forgotten about it, and I remember thinking it was really cool and just sort of moving on. I did not realize that it had reached development hell and died on the table. But that is the Salt in Wounds campaign setting. And Matt, would you like to read a little bit from the flavor text of Salt in Wounds?
Upon approach to the city of Salt and Wounds, the first thing a traveler will note is the sounds of the Tarrasque, the unkillable mountain-sized monster that terrorized the world in the last age, screaming as it is butchered again to feed a hungry city. Its roars echoes for dozens of leagues, and the ground occasionally trembles as the beast thrashes against the immovable harpoons that hold it in place.
So this was a big deal on Reddit, and it's a pretty cool idea, right? It's a city that's built up around a immobile Tarrasque, and its bones and flesh are harvested for meat and other things sort of in perpetuity because it regenerates, and you can never really kill the Tarrasque. Like, this is the kind of advanced fantasy thinking that I like. Follow the thought process through to its end conclusion is what I like about Eberron. It's like, Eberron is like, what if we had all this magic? What would the world look like? Similarly, what if there actually was a Tarrasque and people were powerful enough to immobilize and harvest it? What would that look like? Very cool idea.
And this campaign, to let you know what was promised, is it's a campaign setting. It's like an extended mega city campaign for both, warning here, 5th edition and Pathfinder. It launched in 2016 with an estimated delivery in 2017, and it raised almost $60,000 and had over 1,000 backers.
Yeah, and like we said, again, because it was launched in 2016, it was meant to go with 5th edition, and with Pathfinder 1st edition, Salt and Wounds was... J.M. Perkins has some chops, has done some things before third-party stuff.
He wrote some small third-party things. He sometimes wrote on Tribality, the blog website. That's where I knew him from, but yeah.
So this launched in 2016, as you will, you can do the math. It's now 2023, and it is not done. It is very much not done, and in fact, it was more or less abandoned entirely. Though there is, I don't know, there's sort of a, not like a happy ending, but there is a conclusion to this story, I suppose.
Yeah. Before we get to that, I would say the first kind of warning sign, right, which was like the author. It was very clear the author had never done something this massive before. And you might say, well, that's fine. Like, isn't this what Kickstarter is for? But the problem is, I think a lot of money doesn't actually give you the ability to do something you're not prepared to do. One of the problems with this is I think they were asking for, Perkins was asking for like $1,000, and this raised $60,000. So it took what might have been like a zine-length campaign stop the city of the Salt and Wounds of the Tarrasque, and it turned it into a player's guide and a DM's guide and a 15-level 3-part adventure path, a separate mega dungeon, dungeon tiles, maps, a separate one-shot adventure. And yes, the first deadline was blown past, and things didn't seem like they were happening. There were lots of updates posted, but
yeah. So this is the DM of None guide to grifters. Tip number 2 or 3 or whatever we're at. If somebody gets overfunded and they start adding things that weren't in the initial plan, that's a red flag, right? If it's part of the stretch goals already, that's one thing. But if they get overfunded and they're like, well, I guess I'd also want to do a campaign guide at a bestiary and whatever, that's no good. That is a problem, and that is something to look out for. And here's a tip to Kickstarter founders. Even if you make too much money and people are going to yell at you, just do what you said you would do. Don't do a single other thing and pocket the rest of the money.
Just keep the money, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of being like, all right, because at the end of the day, is $60,000 enough to do all those things? Probably not. Even if you're the only person you're paying a salary, I don't think I could live on $60,000 in enough time to make all of these things, plus pay artists and editors and layout folks. So a lot of the comments on this, I think, were similar to your and my reaction. Like, this was a really, really cool idea. Some of the people, so J.M. Perkins wasn't the only person working on this. Obviously, there were contracted people to help write some of the chapters and do some of the art. And it turns out that sometime in 2017, a lot of the other people who were just very enthusiastic on the project were reaching out to the main creator, being like, I'll quote one here. When JM, the creator, began ghosting contributors, it was clear he was having issues. I reached out multiple times to ask if I could help with the workload. I emailed him. I messaged him on social media. I even called his phone and left several messages. I offered to do, frankly, anything as I had more freedom. Turns out, yeah, the other creators just got ghosted, and the $57K, which, needed to go to editors and layout people and artists, never got spent. Whether the creator pocketed it or lost it on the subway, we'll never know.
And I just sort of want to make the point here that when we say it's a cool idea, I mean, it's a cool idea for a zine. Like, here's a town, some information, maybe a small dungeon, 10 pages of here's a cool sort of story adventure prompt. Throw this in and do what you want with it. I do not know that the cool idea of the Tarrasque being harvested justifies a player's guide, a 15-level adventure path, a mega dungeon, and, all these things. The idea itself is good. It is not enough to sustain all of this.
I think this is grifter tip number 6 or whatever, which is a cool idea, whether in business, art, or TTRPGs, does not make a successful completion of that cool idea. Everyone has cool ideas. Every GM and player has very cool ideas. Cool ideas are a dime a dozen. The ability to turn those cool ideas into something usable for other people is where the real magic happens.
Yeah, I mean, this is we'll just a major point, but ideas are worthless. Everybody has ideas. The idea itself is worth absolutely nothing. Everything that matters is your ability to execute. So that's a pretty consistent through line in all of the things that we are going to be talking about. It's also a pretty consistent thing about most creative endeavors and tabletop role-playing games in general. A lot of people with a following will have a cool idea and people get excited about it, and then the idea as it is executed, if it ever gets executed, is kind of eh. And that's because an idea is worth nothing until it has been made into something. So here's the sort of I don't know, happy ending is that JM at long last was like, look, here's everything that I've got, and he just shared a bunch of stuff on Google Drive. So obviously that's pretty disappointing, but that is better than doing nothing. And the original cool idea and some of the stuff that he came up with, you can now work with. So that's cool. That is, I think, if you must fail, that is a graceful way to do so.
Right. The creator, came out and sort of said, I apologize. I overpromised and underdelivered. Set out with the best intentions, and here's everything they had made. It turns out like there's a lot of things that were started, none finished. I read through some of them, a ton of typos and inconsistencies. It's nowhere near a finished product. This was released in 2019, so 2 years after the promised execution date. Again, the thing that, so for me, why I include this on this list is, one, it was a cool idea that we both kind of liked and would have liked to see succeed. Two, I wouldn't want to put something on this list that was just like, well, this guy just failed, right? Unlike the previous one, like, he wasn't continually lying to himself and people. It's going to be done in a month, right? He realized it failed. But, $57,000 was raised. I'm sure Kickstarter took a cut. Some of that money, was not used to fund the project. We don't know exactly what happened to it. Most of it seemed to have disappeared. And we did get something released into the public domain, which is not nothing. But again, some money was, it's hard to say stolen because I feel like all Kickstarter money is stolen. But it disappeared. So it's a grift in my book.
It is. And again, in the grand scheme of things, 57,000 is not that much. And we all know of much larger grifts and Kickstarter scams. But yeah, this is a classic just of tabletop hubris. It just, Kickstarter has allowed people who otherwise might not have had the opportunity. It's really democratized the ability to scam people. We're not going to name names, but there are actual like TTRPG publishing companies that do this with some regularity, or underdeliver or delay, take money for things that never happen. So it's a time-honored tradition in the tabletop space.
Yeah, I think the other lesson to be learned here is that if you're raising money for something like some kind of RPG book, that book should basically be finished, or you and your team's contribution should be finished. And so that once you get the money for art or printing or special dice bags or whatever, that money can be spent. The editing and layout of books takes a huge amount of time. So don't do a Kickstarter if all you have is still the idea and the elevator pitch for the idea, because you will not be able to write the book, manage the money, and do all these things. The book needs to be basically done when you do a Kickstarter.
Look, people sometimes complain about like the gatekeeping of the traditional publishing industry, and they're not wrong. Well, actually, they're right. But I will say that like if you want to get a book published traditionally, when you pitch it, it has to be done. You have to be able to show the whole book to the agent or publisher that you want to publish your book. And I think that's a pretty, like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to have a draft, right? You have to have like a finished product to show, even if it still needs editing and polishing. And I think that's a pretty like good metric. I mean, the reason why I think publishers do that is because they're probably used to authors never finishing their books. I mean, what happened to George R.R. Martin's advance for The Winds of Winter, or Patrick Rothfuss's advance for The Doors of Stone? That's just like money flushed down the toilet. So in the same sense for Kickstarter, I feel like if you're going to invest, but also I feel like if you're going to put it on Kickstarter, you should have something to show. You should be like, the book is done. I need money to do layout and editing and hire artists and finish and distribute and blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, in my opinion, that is likely to never happen and is a grift.
All right, Rob, let's move on to our next one. And Rob, for this one, I tried to think of something from my childhood. I tried to think of a face and a friend who would never hurt me. And then appeared.
You did it. You made Grimmerspace happen. You launched Iron GM Games' flagship project, and you did so by believing in us. We are so very grateful. Now, we're going to roll up our sleeves and get started delivering the sci-fi horror setting and adventures that you made possible. Thank you.
And then, of course, Rob, that was the voice of Samwise Gamgee himself.
Sean Astin has it, and now we're getting into the real, like, big ticket Kickstarter grifts. And I remember this one, but I had forgotten that Sean Astin was attached to it, and I had not kept up with it. And it is Grimmerspace.
Grimmerspace, which is pitched, and this was just a few years, or just recently after the Starfinder campaign saying came out, as a more hardcore setting for you to use your Starfinder rules. And pitched as one of the developers, not just the spokesperson, though again, the amount he is involved is unclear, is Sean Astin, along with game designers Roan Barton and Lou Agresta. And originally, I found a, like, coming soon, it seemed like Wesley Snipes, I'm not joking here, was also involved.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this one because, yeah, Sean Astin has a little, like, cameo, a little, like, bit that you just heard, and, like, Wesley Snipes may have been involved. It's got a lot of, like, polish. This raised $200,000,
From almost 3,000 backers.
Yeah, it has a bunch of cool art, a bunch of, like, neat, like, mock-ups. There's some real people attached to this.
Yeah. So I guess we would say our big grift tip number 8 is that if there are celebrities attached to the project that don't seem like they know how to make a role-playing book, listen, I love Sean Astin. I'm even going to forgive him for stealing all this money from people. And I love Wesley Snipes, and apparently he was smart enough to be like, I'm not fucking with this. They are great. I love Wesley Snipes so much. But yeah, you do not need these types of people to write a role-playing game setting. So what is Grimmerspace? It is Starfinder like never before. Gritty terrorscapes, alien atrocities, and tough moral choices. In Grimmerspace, the stakes are always high, and the price of heroism is steep.
I mean, this is very bizarre because all this is a campaign setting for Starfinder, which is cool. I think that's neat. But having, like, a celebrity cameo and, like, all of this hoopla around, what is basically Eberron for Starfinder or whatever, or the equivalent. Maybe it's more like Ravenloft for Starfinder.
Yeah, I would say Ravenloft for Starfinder.
The point is, it's just like a campaign setting, which is very cool, but, like, that's in the grand scheme of tabletop products is middling. Like, that's not something that's going to appeal to or have a very broad base, even at the best of times. I'm totally and utterly bewildered by Grimmerspace.
I guess the idea is it's like technology versus magic, and magic is like a horror, and this allows you to create heroes that are all technology based in space. Again, I don't think it's that different enough from Starfinder that if you're just using the Starfinder rules, that's that interesting to me. This, as addition to Rob said, in being a leap up in the amount raised, we're getting close to the 1/5 of $1 million here, also promised dice and bags and DM screens and art by Larry Elmore and more than one book, and for stretch goals for super backers, an actual blaster and posters and battle maps and stickers and miniatures. There was a ton of stuff in this one.
Yeah, the stretch goals are truly, well, they're a stretch, and they have all these videos of, like, slick design. Yeah, a movie prop quality blaster. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, digital
a monster book, a player's book, a GM's book. Oh boy.
So many new books, and again, they met all of these stretch goals. I'm pretty sure. Oh, here it is. Here's the big rewards table. Yeah, all the adventures, a premium slipcase, maps, posters, a blaster, miniatures. Oh, they were going to throw in the Starfinder rulebooks as well? Oh.
Yes, I think so. Of the things that were promised in this, the only thing anyone has gotten is their copies of the Starfinder rulebook. I found some people posting online like, well, I did get my copy of the Starfinder rulebook. I guess I paid 4 times the price of it. The other interesting thing about this one is a lot of, I think as a stretch goal, a lot of veteran Paizo and other adjacent companies' writers, including some that I think we've even had on the show before, were brought in to write adventures for Grimmer Space. And, you know, if you're a working TTRPG writer and someone says, I'll pay you X money to write a module for me, here's the campaign setting, you know, book and guidelines, go for it, you're probably going to say yes. So grifting tip number 10 is don't trust the contract. You know, if you're like, oh, it's got contracted writer so-and-so, I love their stuff, they seem like a nice person. Well, if they're not the people running the show, it doesn't mean diddly squat for you.
Right. Having again, it does not matter who's attached to the project, and this for Grimmer Space, this is applicable both to the actors and to the writers who they got on hand, because all they have to do is send in their clip or their whatever they wrote, and they have nothing to do with, like, will it actually come out. So
yeah, sorry, we've never had any of these people on the show. We've talked about them before. For example, Shanna Germain, author of the Safety Toolkit for RPGs. Owen K. Steven, Greg Vaughn, James Stutter. Like, you've heard of these people before. But again, they were contracted. They weren't in charge of anything.
Yeah, unless they are in charge, it means nothing. Do not be swayed or fooled or otherwise bamboozled by the fact that a name that you like, somebody that is otherwise, you know, makes good stuff, is somehow attached to a product. It means nothing. It is not to be trusted.
I am happy. I am guessing, and I hope this is true, because Samwise, while he's a person of the land, he didn't go to fancy Hobbit finishing school. I hope he knows to get paid up front. I hope Sean Asta at least got his cut.
Almost certainly, he got paid for this. He already got his bag. So we have an update from, it looks like, July of this year, and so here's the current state of the Grimmer Space Kickstarter.
Oh, I should mention, the main excuse for this one, and you know, this is a real thing, is that COVID fucked up things. But I will say, that does not prevent you from creating a PDF of a book, which at this point is all the backers are asking for.
So this is the most recent update. Is printing and shipping costs have increased, so it's hard to see. This is the question. The authors say the long answer is that we didn't raise enough money from the initial Kickstarter to cover ballooning freight costs, inflated shipping costs, and accelerating print costs, especially in a larger than anticipated book. So between us, Roan and I have sold cars, refinanced our homes, and secured a line of credit for Iron GM Games. As of right now, we have the money we need to finish, to print our larger books, to freight them to fulfillment houses, and to ship to you.
So I would say to that, you shouldn't be running a game company. You should take the money that you raised and use it to do something else with your life. If you're going to steal the money for something, you know, that was promised, at least do something useful with it, because it doesn't sound like you're cut out to run a game company. And again, you know, this is, I don't mean this is an incredibly harsh criticism. I don't think many of us are.
I don't want to, like, this is America, right? So you're supposed to pursue your dreams, and no matter what it takes.
Business, yeah.
But like, you should not refinance your home to put out a TTRPG book. Like,
very stupid.
Under no circumstances should you refinance your home really to do anything, but you definitely shouldn't do it so you can finish publishing a TTRPG book.
Especially one called Grimmer Space.
Yes.
That's got to seem really embarrassing when you talk to the loan officer.
And especially the reason why you shouldn't do this is, as many of you may be aware, Starfinder is coming out with a second edition probably like later this year. One thing that Paizo does that Iron GM Games and Salt and Wounds, you know, doesn't do is deliver on time. Like, you know, when they say that a book is coming out, it comes out usually when they say it's going to come out. So at this rate, Grimmer Space is going to have to go back to the drawing board, because there will not be a Starfinder edition that they are correct for.
So a long-running joke on their social media and in their backer comments was like, God, they're going to come out with a new edition of Starfinder by the time this actually comes out. And then to quote one backer, my God, the meme actually happened. A new edition of Starfinder was announced before Grimmer Space released, which means a lot of what they did, which was all built for Starfinder 1E, has to be completely thrown out and starting over. I looked at some of their like playtest materials and stuff like that. It seemed like half-ass fan Starfinder classes, which, again, not that bad, but again, is it worth $180,000? No, probably not. If some random poster on the Starfinder forums can find all the holes and typos and things that don't make sense about your class, yeah, maybe you're not up to publishing a 3-volume set for your campaign setting.
I would be willing to put upwards of $20 down on that this will never come out. I would very comfortably take that bet.
We're taking that bet on all of these, by the way, Rob. I don't believe
Yes.
any of these will ever. I mean, at least some of them they have actually given up, but on the ones they haven't, they're never. It's never going to happen. Stop trying to make fetch happen.
Yes, none of these are going to happen, but Grimmer Space especially is not going to come out. Especially before Starfinder 2nd Edition. I would be shocked if they release anything of consequence.
Yeah. So, okay, that was a tale of a little bit of COVID, celebrity shenanigans. Just all around seems like a grift. Here's another one that, back to in our Salt and Wounds theme, that I and many other people were very excited about when it first came out.
Matt and I both got by this one, so we want to own up that this guy has our money and we will never see it again.
Grift lesson number 11. Don't trust us because we're just as susceptible, dumb nerds ready to give real money for fake books that don't exist yet. And yeah, we are not immune to the hype or the FOMO of Kickstarter. So what is this next one, Rob?
So this next one is Swords Fall.
Welcome to T-Core.
T-Core. So Swords Fall, here's the tagline. Swords Fall isn't just a story, it's a world. It's a dive into pre-colonial Africa for all the rich lore you've never heard of. It's an exploration into a world where the majority of the faces are dark, yet isn't constrained to one corner. It's a world where women hold power equal to men, and the merit of one's soul is what propels them through life. It's a world where spirits aren't to be feared, they are to be embraced. In a time where we know that representation matters, this project is an effort to add to that spirit in a way I know best, narrative fiction in the nerdiest of flavors.
So, Swords Fall is made up of 3 key parts: World Anvil, Tabletop RPG, and Stories/Novels, each of them telling a different part in the lore that is the world of T-Core. This setting and art book is part of that synergy and the first step toward realizing the tabletop RPG. So, some quick facts. This one raised over $120,000 from over 2,000 backers. It was written up in Kotaku. It earned the Kickstarter Project We Love tag and promised nothing too spectacular in all of the extra things, just physical books and digital books.
So in our defense, and the defense of everybody who gave money to this project, it looked really slick. It had really good art. It had good writing. The person in charge, Brandon, I'm sorry, I just call him Brandon Swordsfall. I don't know what his last name is.
Brandon Dixon, I think.
Yeah. He he's a good writer. He has some or he had, we'll get to that in a minute, had some sort of like cred and sway within the community. This seemed like the real deal. Like, it was ambitious. It was cool. It was very slick. It was a great idea. And it was a reasonable end goal, right? Some books,
It's not even, we're not even writing an RPG system. We're just writing a setting book that you could use for your own stuff. I'm like, well, that's reasonable. Though I think some warning signs are here if you're paying attention. Here's a new tip. Dungeon Master Grift tip number 15 is we buy things that look cool with art, and that's fine and good. Humans are visual creatures, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything underlying will actually be good. It also, as you might have noticed, has the I'm doing more than one thing. It's also fiction. It's also going to have its own tabletop RPG setting that I'm also working on, but this is just one thing. So
I gotta elaborate on this. This is an advanced DM of None Grift tip, and that's that art means nothing. So I don't know if everybody's aware.
It means everything for raising money.
It doesn't mean anything for will it come out. And I don't mean this to sound dismissive, because it is true that we live in a time when there are thousands upon thousands of fantastically talented artists languishing, just ready to draw up something for $100 that is better than anything that appeared in second edition AD&D, and
better than anything that appeared in any role-playing book before 2004.
So, like, it's easy to be, and these people, by the way, all deserve to be fabulously compensated, and I hope that they all find good jobs and do well. But, like, I'm just saying that anyone with like $100 to spend can commission some really fantastic art, especially if they have a little bit of time and vision and are willing to work with the right artists. So do not be fooled if you look at any project and you're like, oh wow, that's a really cool art style, because there's a great artist behind that, and they probably took their money and are now working on some other commission or drawing furry porn or whatever. It doesn't mean anything about like whether or not this thing will fund and finish and you'll ever see a physical product.
And this was, if you were paying attention, and I was not, the first warning sign for this project is that many of the art on the Kickstarter page was not commissioned for the project at all, but was examples of artists that would be commissioned on the project. So there was lots of cool art, and it had the Afrofuturist theme on the page, but none of that art was going to be in the project or was part of the project. Somehow the creator, either with permission or without, I'm assuming with permission, but I don't really know, took these artists' art and was like, I'm going to put it on the page to help us raise money so I can pay you a commission. So that was warning sign number one. Number two, the only other person attached to this project besides Ideas guy, Brandon Dixon, was a Australian or New Zealand stand-up corporate comedian, Taylor Ruddle.
I got invited to a funeral last week that started at 6 a.m, but I didn't go because I'm just not a morning person.
So if that's your guy who is your editor, maybe that's not so great.
Now, again, it was easy to overlook this stuff because, unless you're really like keenly attuned to the grift, which is why, again, we are here as the Tabletop Consumer Protection Bureau to warn you about these things. Unless you're looking for this, it would have been very easy to overlook all of these obvious problems. So here's what happened with Swordsfall. Like, once it raised $120,000.
Well, I'll add, and this is another warning tip number 17, is media coverage. That media has not caught up to Kickstarter yet. This got a ton of positive coverage, not just on Kotaku, but on several RPG sites and blogs, and had a ton of positive coverage from people who are plugged into the TTRPG scene on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Brandon Dixon has a very good social media game. So
He's also, if you can find videos of him, he's very charming. He seems like a normal guy. He does not give off grifter vibes, and he fooled a lot of people. And I will say that normally, like, if you see a game written up in like Polygon or Kotaku or Vice or something that's not an industry rag, you can be reasonably sure that that's not, they're not taking, money under the table, and that's probably something you can trust. They were wrong about this, though. Yep. It's not a guarantee, and they absolutely whiffed on Swordsfall, and it's not the only game they have ever whiffed on. So this was a big fail from a lot of different people.
And I think it's an understandable failure because there are, especially in 2019 when this launched, there are not a lot of Afro-punk, Afro-futurist, or Afro-fantasy campaign settings or role-playing games. That's changed in subsequent years. But at this time, people are hungry for this. It was not only a good idea and it looked cool, it was an idea people wanted.
Yeah.
And they maybe wanted it too badly.
They maybe wanted it a little bit too badly. And this came at exactly the right time to take advantage of people's hunger for that. So it raised $120,000 from 2,000 backers, including us. And this is where the story starts to look like the rest of them. Time went on. Nothing ever really happened. There was, again, some new art. I remember following this guy, and there were a bunch of like cool updates about like things that were happening and stuff he was working on, but nothing was really there. And
so I'll point out, so like now that we're on the other side, right? Nothing has ever been delivered. Nothing of this project, nothing digital or physical. Some early, I think, I don't know, starting around 2020 or something, you know, a lot of people began kind of, who were backers, were like, hey, you know, your projected release date is getting close. No one's seen, you know, chapter 1. You said you were going to release that to backers, stuff like that. Brandon Dixon was pretty vociferous in his attacks on anyone who brought up sort of like, hey, this doesn't seem like this is going to make the date. In his defense, or not in his defense, but as context, this as one of the first prominent in this age of TTRPGs, this era of TTRPGs, project that really centralizes blackness, he got a lot of racist attacks against him.
Oh, yeah.
But
people hated the idea of this, and they were mad at him and the project because it was unabashedly like Afrofuturist. So that sucks. As it turns out, though, you can be the target of racist attacks and still be a shithead. Things started to emerge 2020, 2021 from artists that he had worked with especially, but really a lot of people on the project, that Brandon himself was an abuser and a creep and just generally like created a toxic workplace environment.
He would spend all his time encouraging dog piles of anyone who criticized the project. It gets even more complicated in that, you know, there were some accusations of some inappropriate behavior directed towards women or one woman, not verified in a court of law accusations, but Brandon's basically last update to the project was a post that was, here's my side of this, you know, messy relationship or abusive relationship, depending on which side you take thing, and here's what's going on with the project. And then that was 3 years ago, and he's never been heard from on this project again. Meanwhile, to complicate things even further, while this project was still going on, I think this is where some of the first ideas of like, this is just a grift. He launched another Kickstarter to do a comic book set in the world of Swords Fall T-Core and raised a much smaller amount of money. And then the artist he hired to work on them, there was a lot of accusations of being unprofessional, of getting things late to the artist, of the outline of the comics being an absolute mess that no comic book writer in their right mind could expect an artist to make something out of.
Yeah. So again, there's a lot of this is still up in the air. A lot of this is still relatively fresh. And so we're going to try to avoid making any firm pronouncements about what did or did not happen. It does seem clear that that some artists were not paid. One thing that is like obviously true is that nothing has been delivered. Whether or not the other aspects, the workplace abuse, the sexual harassment, that is obviously alleged as of right now. But yeah, so Brandon has not disappeared, but he has disappeared from this project. Last I checked, he is now, or there's now somehow supposed to be a Swords Fall animated television series for Netflix.
Or a video game.
Unclear. Yeah.
I will say, so like the comic book, which raised $24,000, did release. Backers did get a digital copy of the comic book, but they did not, even if you ordered it, get a physical copy. However, the comic book is for sale on Amazon. Some of the reviews say it's not half bad. I would attribute that mostly to the artists who took a bunch of messy pages they got and made something workable out of it. There's a lot of posts from artists, again, unsubstantiated, but they seem likely to me that like they had to defend themselves together in a quasi-union-like environment from abusive workplace tendencies from Brandon Dixon, and were able to at least get paid a little bit and make the comic book work.
Yeah, so I had forgotten about this. For a while, again, before I realized and other people realized, what he was up to, he posted a lot of, like, T-shirts and, like, phone cases, a lot of, like, Teespring, Redbubble, like, merch stuff that, yeah.
With the art he did not create, but I'm sure when he commissioned it for the rights for this project and for other things. And if I had to guess, a possible grift he could have allegedly done is just take the money from the Kickstarter, used it to buy art, and then sold things with that art on it, and probably collected all of the profits himself. He could have shared it with the artist, but it doesn't seem like he did.
So yeah, as of now, I mean, the Swords Fall T-Core RPG setting is defunct, is kaput. But he's still out there grifting, just doing a different grift.
Selling t-shirts, still collecting $35 on Patreon. I think this is the other grift. You know, if you're backing someone who is getting canceled, then that's a warning sign. If you're backing someone who is seeming to try and squeeze every bit of profit out of the art they're commissioning, that's also a warning sign. If they're moving on to another grift before this one is obviously not finished, that's a problem. And again, the same things we've seen on other ones. It was clear this book was not done. The chapters that some people have allegedly seen were hundreds of pages long, like 2 chapters, 200 pages. That person needs an editor, and they need to have finished the book before they launch the Kickstarter.
I will say so. Like, if you are wondering, well, Rob and Matt, who can I trust? How can I know what Kickstarters to?
No one.
But I would say so. Again, I have to check my emails, but I'm currently getting updates on 2 or 3 different RPG settings, RPG books that may or may not ever come out. But I'm getting regular updates, so that's cool. But I funded, this isn't a TTRPG book, but I Saladin Ahmed put out a comic book that I really liked.
Yeah.
The Dragon, about just a knight and a janissary who fight Dracula or something. But like
So cool.
It was so cool. But I guess going back to the point at the beginning, what you have to do is just accept that money is gone. The second thing I would say, if you are looking for like what's a, instead of a red flag, what's a green flag? Is there an editor attached to the project? I'm not joking. Like, is it just the creator? Is it just the creator? If so, very questionable unless they have a track record of delivering and you can trust them. If it is the creator and a editor separate from them and that is listed purely for their like editing and project management experience, then you can maybe feel a little bit more comfortable sending those people money.
I would also look for things where if you back at the level that gets you the digital version of the book, you'll get that basically when the Kickstarter is done. Because, and then you don't have to worry about any of the shipping problems or the ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal or whatever other things are happening, real or fake excuses. Yeah, because if you're backing a project, they should be able to say, hey, I'm going to give you the digital copy of this book very quickly. And in fact, you should be able to see most of it in a free preview or something like that.
Yes. Ideally, anything that you fund, they will have actual examples on the Kickstarter page of like what is in the book. Text, layout, not just like concept art and blurbs. Look to see like, oh, is this a section taken from what looks like a finished book? If that's there, that's something that you can probably feel a little bit more comfortable about.
One of the frustrating things is, like, at least for the last example, this person, it seems like a lot of people worked with him would say this person was, at the very least, unprofessional and had a track record of unacceptable behavior. Though how you would know that, I don't know, because, one of the things about the TTRPG industry is a lot of people are afraid of. This is something we'll have to save this for a sequel episode on grifters.
Oh, yeah. We have actually like an ultimate grift that we haven't even been able to talk about, which we will talk about on our bonus Patreon episode this month. But yeah, this is a recurring theme in that the TTRPG industry is very insular, and people are afraid to piss off big names or get themselves blacklisted or whatever. And so it's hard for you, the consumer, to know, like, is this person legit or are they well known among writers and creators for being an asshole and being unprofessional?
I think my last kind of big picture question when thinking about this is, did any of these people, what makes a grifter? Are you born a grifter, or is griftness thrust upon you? And I don't know. So we've got 4 examples here. The Gareth Michael Shikari. I forget his name. John Perkins, Brandon Dixon, Roan. I forget the Grimmer Space guys. And I'm not sure that any of them started out with the intention of, I'm going to make this project and then take the money and run. At the end of the day, if you're a consumer, if you gave them money, it doesn't really matter whether they were just like planning on stealing your money or they just stole your money because of other things. But yeah, this is what I'm wondering. Do any of these people start out as grifters?
I mean, it feels to me like if you are just a grifter, there are easier ways to make money. Like if you are comfortable lying and like looking like an asshole and being deceptive, then there's a lot of much easier ways to make money, and there's also easier spaces to get money out of. That being said, as I am saying this, there are a lot of people who like to be a big fish in a small pond, and who look, it's really the safeguards in tabletop role-playing games are not there. So it's easy, even if you can make more money somewhere else. So I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. Most of these people do not look like they set out to be grifters. Brandon Dixon is the only one who I'm kind of like unclear on. But it definitely seems like they all do like TTRPGs and wanted to make one. They just, it just didn't happen.
All right. We had an example of infinite 12-year procrastination for a 100-page book. An example of bring in celebrities. That seems like a clear sign. Example of someone who, quote, was a workplace abuser to 90% of his black team of artists, and if we didn't create a makeshift union, we'd have been royally and privately screwed. So yeah, workplace shittiness, celebrity cameos, overpromising. These are all the signs. You should look for someone who does the number of people working on this project match the scope of it. Can they create a PDF of the thing basically by the time it was done? And the one type of grift we didn't get into, and maybe we will on a future episode, is the continual grift of companies, of role-playing game companies kickstarting. And some of it is legit, and I think a valid way to do business is, and others skirt the line of quasi-scam.
And a good example of this is Monty Cook, whose company kickstarts a lot of things, and you know what? They always come through. You always get what you pay for.
Always? In every case. See, this is the problem with Kickstarter. So
most of the time.
Right. See, and that's my point. I think if there's a larger point, right, is that Kickstarter itself, right, the way this funding model works, and I don't know if it's any worse or better than anything else, but encourages people to overpromise and underdeliver and feel the pressure and take the money and run and stop updating or continue to update and lie about the status of their project. I think, yeah, it's just the way this funding model works encourages the grift.
I am very hesitant to write off Kickstarter entirely because there are several.
We just talked about Flea Mortals. That was a Kickstarter project.
Yep.
We, not too long ago, talked about Shadow Dark. That was a Kickstarter project.
The video game Pillars of Eternity was a Kickstarter project. So there are things that would not exist without Kickstarter. That being said, I gotta agree with Matt. I think Kickstarter itself is a problem, and we might be better off if it didn't exist.
Well, it's getting on the blockchain now, or have they abandoned that? So it's it seems like the management of Kickstarter itself has some other problems.
Yeah.
But don't trust the project we love. Don't trust the amount raised. Again, don't trust anything.
Don't trust anything. Be very, very discerning if you ever give money to Kickstarter, I guess is the lesson here. And just be prepared to never see anything for those dollars. Just consider that a gamble on a potential future product.
And if you liked hearing about this, consider, speaking of grifts, consider joining the show on patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None. The money goes to paying for the hosting of the show and for dinner out for me and Rob. We're hanging out in Portland, having a good time. And if you thought this was funny, we have one that is so massive and so insane, it will probably take us an entire episode just to talk about this one grift.
Yeah, we had to save our biggest grift for its own episode, so tune into the Patreon for that. If you have suggestions or thoughts, do email us at dmofnone@gmail.com, add us on Twitter at dmofnone, and no matter what you do, keep rolling them dice.
Raising those funds, hitting those stretch goals.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or